Hello and welcome to our talk showcasing a new model of learning, which we are calling three-dimensional thinking. My name is Michael Bennett and I'm the Head of Portfolio Management at King's College London. I also lecture in experiential learning at London Metropolitan University. My friend and colleague, Mark Bentley, is with me.
Hi, I'm Mark Bentley and I'm the Operations Director for Logistics and Supply Chain at a College of Further Education and Higher Education in the southeast of England. I'm also a current PhD student looking at thinking models in education and also lecture in entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Mark, and we'll hear a lot more from Mark later on. So I'm going to start by discussing the impact of marketisation and the rise of employability discourse as I seek to set the scene for the model which Mark is going to introduce. I will provide further context by analysing the fourth industrial revolution, its impact on jobs and the resurgence of lifelong learning. Moving on to the heart of the talk, Mark will introduce the three-dimensional thinking model, combining design thinking, systems thinking, and critical thinking for the first time. Finally, I will conclude by beginning a discussion on the pedagogic strategies to deliver this model on campus and online. So the origins of expansionism in higher education can be traced back to the United States and the seminal work of Gary Becker, Human Capital, which was first published back in 1964. Becker originally defines human capital as the knowledge, skills, health, and values of an individual. He extends this to incorporate information and ideas in 2002. Citing published economic reports and comparing them to education spending, Becker concludes that countries with persistent economic growth have also had large increases in investment in education and training. He determines that we live in a knowledge capital economy, as, whilst financial capital is important, for Becker, human capital is the most significant. He gives an example of the technological sector. Becker determines it is driven by human capital and the ability of individuals to formulate ideas. Technology is the driver of the modern economy, Becker concludes, but it is human capital that is the fuel. Moving forwards to 1996, here in the United Kingdom, and we're obviously aware that many of you will be watching us from around the world, but here in the United Kingdom, the Conservative government appointed a committee chaired by Ron Deering back in 1996 to analyse higher education. It reported the following year after Tony Blair and New Labour had swept to power. The university system, concludes Deering, should sustain the UK's economic competitiveness. Indeed, Deering argues that universities are key to the economic survival of the United Kingdom through their ability to develop a well-educated, high-skilled workforce for a fast-changing global economy. The marketisation of higher education here in the UK was accelerated by the Brown Report back in 2010, which was presented to the newly elected coalition government, where David Cameron was Prime Minister. And this followed the global economic crisis of 2008, which was significant because instead of a block grant, which had been the previous mechanism of funding higher education, students would pay the full tuition fees through a loan from the government with repayment linked to earnings. Universities would then be given free rein to expand, but were challenged by Brown to persuade students that they should pay more to get more. As a result of the sustained shift in government policy and the funding of higher education in the UK, there has been, we argue, an irreversible tipping of the scales in favour of employability discourse. The pressure on universities was brought about, at least in part, we argue, as a result of a rapidly changing economy Indeed, we argue that the fourth industrial revolution has delivered a new human age. In order to take advantage of enhancements in technology, skills and attributes have become more important than ever across all levels of an organization. We argue that the shelf life of knowledge is reducing all the time. Technology is unpacking and repacking jobs at an extraordinary rate. The combination of extended careers and continuous development of technology results in a requirement, we say, for lifelong learning. In a report published back in 2017, Deloitte conclude that individuals are required to refresh their skills at least 6 times during their careers. Going further, an individual's skill set is likely to become obsolete in less than 5 years. Therefore, an agile, competence-based offer will be required if universities are to retain and remain a credible option for tomorrow's postgraduate workforce. Workers who are sufficiently agile to respond to the changing labour market will be most successful, we argue, as will the employers and governments who support them to do so. A recent study by PwC sees artificial intelligence as an opportunity, enabling individuals to spend longer on high-level thinking and specifically decision-making, which I hope in a few short slides there gives me useful context to reintroduce my colleague Mark and the three-dimensional thinking model. Mark.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for that introduction. And I'd like to now talk about the actual different thinking model typologies. The 3 thinking typologies represented in this paper vary in their characteristics, perspectives, and approach to inquiry and analysis. There has been an established body of academic research undertaken in each of these thinking domains, and therefore are commonly acknowledged throughout higher education. However, traditionally, each domain is drawn or aligned to a particular discipline. For example, systems thinking, obviously engineering, critical thinking in a range of humanities, and finally design thinking with art and entrepreneurship. This paper looks at consolidating these 3 thinking domains into an aggregated pedagogy model, in essence, a cognitive thinking diversity model that could serve as an interdisciplinary curricular feature at undergraduate level of education. There are many diverse definitions attributed to all thinking domains noted in this particular paper. However, the authors felt that we'd take the opportunity to create our own definitions in order to better align these with the context of this work. Design thinking, a process of idea generation that, through a series of iterations and refinement, can be applied as a problem-solving methodology, creating new or improve existing processes, products, or services. Thank you, Michael. Next slide, Michael. Design thinking, innovate, create. Design thinking is traditionally associated to product development and innovation, but can bring a different dimension, in particular, to business school disciplines in terms of decision making. Widening the aperture of perspectives to the learner could add value to the student's decision making competence. The flexible nature of design thinking can be introduced into a wide range of education disciplines through its problem-solving attributes, taking this activity beyond the immediate boundaries of the problem. Similar to the previous point, design thinking takes the student to an alternative vantage point in order to assess a situation or problem. The more alternative perspectives generated, the better the opportunity to find the ultimate solution to a given situation. Design thinking has a capability to open up different thinking approach in solving wicked or messy problems, which are becoming increasingly complex in a global connected world. Climate change, social inequality, global pandemics are all examples of complex real-world problems in the 21st century that calls for complexity of thought and solution generation. The next generation of global citizens will need to respond with a different thinking approach than their predecessors. Through design thinking, students are encouraged to think more broadly about problems, creating a deeper understanding of users, customers and clients in terms of the impact and optimal value, according to Dunn and Martin. In essence, design thinking encourages a 360-degree view, or taking a stakeholder thinking approach. We often find that problem-solving solutions can inadvertently omit some stakeholder groups. However, by applying a design thinking approach, this channels solution generation to the heart of the process. Thank you, Michael. Next slide. Critical thinking, an intellectual discipline of objective evaluation, analysis and judgment of facts and information, enabling the formation of sound conclusions and outcomes. Next slide. Critical thinking is often stated as an academic discipline, but often applied in an haphazard and piecemeal fashion in the teaching and learning environment. Critical thinking is traditionally left for the individual academic to nurture this skill within the student as an add-on, or embedding this within their teaching practice. Without adequate and constant exposure to critical thinking, students will not appreciate the benefit this thinking skill can bring to their academic development. In the hectic realms of study programs, students can hardly be relied upon to adapt a self-development approach to studying non-subject related themes and topics. Delivering critical thinking skills is shaped through initiation of discussion, debate and challenge within the teaching and learning environment. As discussion and debate are becoming more prevalent in the classroom, this would appear to be a fertile learning environment to develop the virtues of critical thinking. This thinking domain is universal in nature and can be applied to any discipline. Therefore, its interdisciplinarity delivers a high level of value. Adopting a structured approach to incubating critical thinking in curriculum can be of value to a number of subject areas not normally associated with this particular thinking domain. And finally, critical thinking can develop student reflective judgment capability. Encouraging reflection in learning, popularised by Dewey, Lewin and Piaget, is gaining popularity and recognition in contemporary pedagogy. Therefore, critical thinking would go some way in developing reflective practice in learners. Next slide, please. Systems thinking, the application of thinking in order to view and understand a problem or situation as a system of interconnected and constituent parts. Next slide. Next slide, please. Systems thinking has occupied the peripheries of curricula, according to Arnold and Wade, but the increasing complexity of systems, be it social, technological, economic and political, and their interconnectedness, there is a clear need to bring this thinking domain into mainstream curriculum. The world seems to operate in a series of ecosystems and dependencies and interdependencies, providing an ever-increasing web of complexity. We need to understand in great detail the interfaces, causes and effects with greater accuracy than we have in the past. This will be critical, in particular, when dealing with real-world global challenges in the 21st century. Systems thinking is traditionally found in engineering disciplines in particular, but there is a clear need for students in a wide range of disciplines to understand dynamics and complexity through an holistic thinking process. Systems thinking, for example, has been applied to a number of aspects attributed to COVID-19 pandemic, in understanding in particular the social, economic and political impacts of the lockdown situation. We believe disciplines such as sociology would benefit from adopting systems thinking as part of the study programme. Application of systems thinking enhances students' problem-solving skills and is seen as an imperative in dealing with future complexity of global challenges. Meadows is one of the key proponents of systems thinking and its value to problem solving in relational interactions of component parts. Systems thinking, therefore, brings a unique perspective to problem solving and analysis on behalf of the learner. And finally, systems thinking is augmented when complemented with design thinking in problem solving. Systems thinking has a significant efficacy in problem solving and analysis on its own merit, but is particularly enhanced when aligned with the characteristics and attributes of design thinking, featured as a component of this three-dimensional thinking model. At the heart of this paper lies the underpinning claim of Clement in 1979, who states, "We should be teaching students how to think. Instead, we teach them what to think." With the accessibility to knowledge made so easy through, for example, Google and other similar internet search engines and online digital material, it appears some 40 years after Clement's view on teaching and learning, education, in particular higher education, has failed to make the shift in recognising that developing students' thinking skills is becoming a critical element in preparing them for global citizenship in the 21st century. Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Mark. So here is our model that Mark has just been discussing. It's revealed here for the first time, and it will equip graduates with the tools and the confidence to approach any business problem, we argue, both large and small. Now, I know that many of you will want to pause the video at this point to really take in the model, and we welcome questions, and we'll give you our contact details at the end of this presentation. Also, that within the model, we expect motivated and engaged students will be absolutely essential for the teaching and learning to be effective. Therefore, we recognise that we will require an integrated form of active learning to deliver such a model, especially to undergraduate students. I'm going to conclude our remarks by proposing some pedagogic strategies to achieve the optimum delivery of the model that we've just shown you. The origins of student-centred pedagogy are firmly rooted in the constructivist theories of teaching and learning. Roots of constructivism can be found in the philosophy of Immanuel Kant over 200 years ago, connecting experience to the formation of concepts that are models of reality. Focusing on business education during the 20th century, many educationalists in the United States turned to the work of fellow constructivist John Dewey, in particular his landmark text, How We Think, which was first published back in 1910. The essence of pedagogical developments, such as case method, can be seen as influenced by the education philosopher and his theory of reflective learning. Problems are at the centre of the thinking process, highlights Dewey in what he describes as a fork road situation, where at the heart of the process there should be confusion and doubt. John Biggs successfully combines Kantian constructivist philosophy with student-centred pedagogy in his theory of constructive alignment, connecting learning objectives to the assessment methods. The constructive element, Biggs states, refers to the idea that students construct meaning through relevant learning activities, developed through discussion and interaction. The launch of case method at Harvard Business School back in the 1920s was significant because it succeeded in integrating learning with real-world application in order to enhance students' employability. Through a process of exchanging perspectives, countering and defending points, students became adept at problem solving, exercising judgment, and making difficult decisions. Building on case method, researchers now argue that a multidimensional approach is required to support employability. computer-based simulations and work placements, as well as live briefs and consultancy, are essential tools for today's module leader. They will become even more important as a result of COVID-19, as we seek to build online learning communities comprising of students from around the world and across different time zones. So with that, that concludes our presentation. I hope you have found it useful. Please do send your feedback. We've got our email addresses on screen now. If you want a copy of the model in a different format, we'd be happy to provide it. And if you would like to reference our presentation or our model, we have included the Harvard reference for your convenience. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.